Nathan Grayson sat in his sleek office, the Manhattan skyline behind him. Emily Ward, seated across, was incredulous. "You're asking me to what? Carry your child?" Nathan, composed, replied, "This is a business proposition." Emily scoffed, "You don't think there's something deeply wrong with this?" Nathan shrugged, "It's practical. I want an heir, not a wife. You're the only person I trust." Emily retorted, "You trust me to have your child, but not as a person?" Nathan remained calm, "This isn't personal. It's practical." Emily leaned forward, "Money doesn't solve everything. What about my reputation?" Nathan's tone softened, "Everything would be discreet. You'd have my full support, and at the end, you'd receive a sum to eliminate your debts." Emily thought of her bills, her sister's tuition, her mother's expenses. "What happens after the baby is born?" she asked. Nathan replied, "You'd relinquish all parental rights." Emily laughed hollowly, "It's a child, not a business deal." Nathan's frustration showed, "I've thought this through. I chose you because I respect you." Emily crossed her arms, "This isn't about handling something. It's about living with it." Nathan leaned forward, "I've built everything by making tough decisions. This is no different." Emily felt the weight of her financial struggles. "I need to know why me," she asked. Nathan hesitated, "Because you're different. You don't bend under pressure. I trust you." Emily was taken aback by his sincerity. "I'll need time to think," she said, standing up. Nathan nodded, "Take your time." Her frustration boiling over, "Do you even hear yourself? You think throwing money at someone makes everything okay, that people don't need basic respect." Nathan's gaze hardened. "Respect is earned, not given." Emily took a step closer, her voice lowering, but losing none of its intensity. "And what have you done to earn mine?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. For the first time, Nathan looked unsure, his usually unshakable demeanor faltering. Before he could respond, Emily turned on her heel and left the party, her heart pounding with anger and hurt. The next morning, Nathan visited the guest house unannounced. Emily, still stewing from the previous night, opened the door reluctantly. "I wanted to apologize," Nathan said, his tone uncharacteristically soft. "Not for the party, I can't control what people say, but for dismissing your feelings." Emily raised an eyebrow, surprised. "That's unexpected." Nathan nodded. "I've been focused on the practical aspects of this arrangement, but I didn't consider how difficult this must be for you. I'll do better." Emily hesitated, searching his face for sincerity. "You can start by treating me like a person, not just someone carrying your child." Nathan gave a small nod. "Fair enough." A week later, during a routine medical appointment, Emily and Nathan found themselves in the exam room together. The doctor adjusted the ultrasound machine, and soon the rhythmic sound of a heartbeat filled the room. Emily's breath caught as she looked at the screen, tears welling in her eyes. Despite everything, the sound was magical, a reminder of the life growing inside her. She glanced at Nathan and was shocked to see a similar reaction. His usually stoic face had softened, his eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity she hadn't seen before. "It's strong," the doctor said with a smile. "Everything looks perfect." Nathan nodded, his gaze never leaving the monitor. For a moment, he seemed to forget about contracts, arrangements, and appearances. He was simply a man about to become a father. As they left the office, Nathan surprised Emily by opening the car door for her. On the ride back, the usual tension between them felt lighter, replaced by a fragile sense of connection. That evening, Emily returned to the guest house to find a small package waiting for her. Inside was a collection of books she had once mentioned liking. Tucked between the pages was a note in his neat handwriting. "I thought these might help pass the time." Emily smiled despite herself, holding the books close. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The day began like any other, with Emily enjoying a quiet morning in the garden. A book resting in her lap, the sprawling estate was peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos her life had once been. But the serenity didn't last. Nathan approached, his polished demeanor intact, but with an air of curiosity that Emily had grown used to. "Good morning," he greeted, sitting down beside her. His tailored suit seemed out of place amidst the lush greenery. "Morning," Emily replied, her tone neutral but polite. Nathan gestured toward the book in her hands. "What are you reading?" Emily hesitated before showing him the cover. "It's a novel about resilience, something I can relate to." Nathan studied her expression for a moment. "You have that in spades." Emily blinked, taken aback by the compliment. "Thank you, I think." He leaned back, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "You've managed to handle all this arrangement, the changes, better than I expected." Emily arched an eyebrow. "What did you expect? That I'd break down crying in a corner?" Nathan gave a faint smile. "Honestly, I wasn't sure. People tend to crumble under pressure, but not you." Emily set the book aside, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "You think surviving makes me strong? It's not strength, Nathan, it's necessity. When you don't have options, you fight because there's no other choice." "Stood in the doorway for a moment watching her. You draw well," he said, stepping inside. Emily glanced up, surprised. "Thanks, it helps me think." Nathan hesitated before sitting across from her. "I used to draw as a kid," he admitted, nothing impressive, but it was an escape." Emily tilted her head, intrigued. "What happened?" He shrugged. "Life expectations. My father thought art was a waste of time, so I stopped." Emily studied him, seeing the cracks in his armor. "Do you ever miss it?" Nathan didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it, sometimes for a brief moment. The space between them felt smaller. The walls Nathan had built around himself slightly lowered. The turning point came a week later, during one of Emily's routine checkups. Nathan had started accompanying her more frequently, though he often claimed it was for logistical reasons. They were returning to the estate. When Emily suggested stopping for a walk at a nearby park, Nathan hesitated, but eventually agreed. The park was quiet, the crisp air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Emily enjoyed the simplicity of it, while Nathan seemed out of his element in such a casual setting. As they walked, Emily suddenly froze. Clutching her stomach, a sharp pain shot through her, and she stumbled. "Nathan," she gasped, her face pale. Without hesitation, Nathan caught her before she fell. His usual calm shattered as panic flashed across his face. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Emily shook her head, her breath shallow. "Something's wrong. The baby. We're going to the hospital now." Nathan's voice was firm, but his hands trembled as he scooped her up and carried her to the car. The drive was a blur. Nathan barked orders into his phone, arranging for doctors to be ready upon their arrival. Emily, writhing in pain, was vaguely aware of his voice, steady and commanding despite the fear she saw in his eyes. At the hospital, a team of medical professionals whisked Emily away, leaving Nathan pacing in the waiting area. Every minute felt like an eternity. The memory of her pain, her helplessness, glared at him. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Hours later, the doctor approached. "She's stable, and so is the baby. It was a scare, but everything is fine for now. She'll need rest and monitoring." Relief washed over Nathan like a tidal wave. "Can I see her?" "Not in court," he told her before limping away. The doctor nodded, leading him to her room. Emily lay in bed, her face pale but her eyes open. She gave him a weak smile as he entered. "You're still here?" she teased, her voice hoarse. Nathan sat beside her, his usual guarded expression replaced with one of vulnerability. "Of course I am. You scared me." Emily raised an eyebrow. "You don't scare easily," he exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I do when it comes to you and the baby." The words hung between them, heavier than either expected. Nathan reached out, hesitating before placing a hand over hers. "I didn't think I'd care this much, but I do." Emily turned to leave but stopped at the door, looking back at him with a mix of defiance and uncertainty. "You might see this as just another deal, Nathan, but for me, it's so much more. Don't forget that." With that, she walked out, leaving Nathan alone in his opulent office. He watched her go, a flicker of something unspoken crossing his face as the door clicked shut. He sat back down and stared out at the city skyline, his mind already calculating the next steps. Emily stepped into the spacious guest house on Nathan's estate, her suitcase feeling woefully small against the backdrop of opulence surrounding her. The interior was pristine and luxurious, with polished wood floors, modern furniture, and a view of sprawling gardens through floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything about it screamed wealth she had never experienced and never sought. She placed her suitcase down, running her fingers along the marble countertop in the open-concept kitchen. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Stephanie, Nathan's assistant, stood at the door, her professional smile firmly in place. "If you need anything, Miss Ward, I'm just a call away," Stephanie said, handing Emily a phone with pre-programmed numbers. "Thanks," Emily replied, her voice uncertain. As Stephanie left, Emily sat down on the edge of the plush couch, feeling like an intruder in someone else's world. This wasn't her life, it was a transaction, a temporary role she had agreed to play. Nathan, meanwhile, remained distant. Days passed with him rarely showing up at the guest house. When he did, his visits were brief and strictly professional. He asked how Emily was feeling, reviewed medical updates from her doctor, and left before any real conversation could begin. Emily's frustration grew with each interaction. One evening, as Nathan stood by the door preparing to leave after a perfunctory check-in, she couldn't hold back any longer. "Is this how it's going to be for the next 9 months?" she asked, her arms crossed. Nathan turned, his expression as calm and unyielding as ever. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I mean this," Emily gestured between them. "You treat me like a piece of machinery, a means to an end. You barely acknowledge that I'm a person." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I provided you with everything you need. If there's something missing, let me know, and I'll ensure it's taken care of." "That's not what I mean," Emily said, her voice rising. "I'm carrying a child, a human being, your child, and you act like it's just another item on your to-do list." Nathan regarded her for a moment, his steely composure betraying a flicker of discomfort. "This arrangement was never meant to be personal, Emily. You knew that when you agreed to it." Emily shook her head, exhaling sharply. "You're impossible," she muttered as he walked out. The weeks that followed were a mix of adjustments and discomfort for Emily. The estate staff, though professional, looked at her with thinly veiled curiosity. Whispers followed her as she strolled through the gardens or sat in the library. To them, she was an enigma. One evening, Emily attended a dinner Nathan had insisted she join to keep up appearances. The gathering was a mix of his wealthy acquaintances and business partners. Emily, wearing a simple dress Nathan had provided, felt like a fish out of water amidst the designer-clad elite. As the evening progressed, she couldn't ignore the sideways glances and hushed murmurs. At one point, while waiting near the dessert table, she overheard 2 women talking nearby. "Did you hear she's the one carrying Nathan's child?" one whispered, her tone dripping with disdain. "I meant I'm asking about love, Nathan. Will you love this child for who they are, not for what they represent to you?" Nathan frowned, setting the papers aside. "Of course I'll love them, but why are you asking me this now?" "Because I've seen how you approach life," Emily said, her voice steady. "You plan, you calculate, you control. Children aren't like that. They'll challenge you, surprise you, and sometimes disappoint you. Can you handle that?" Nathan leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "I've never thought about it that way, but I'll try for them." "For them," Emily echoed, nodding. "And for yourself, don't let fear or control dictate your relationship with this child." When the day finally arrived, it came with a whirlwind of emotions. Emily went into labor in the early hours of the morning, and Nathan was by her side throughout the process. He held her hand as she braved the pain, his own calm facade cracking as he saw her struggle. When the first cries of the baby filled the room, Nathan felt a wave of relief and joy unlike anything he had ever experienced. The doctor announced it's a boy and handed the baby to Emily, who looked at him with tears in her eyes. But when the nurse brought over the second baby, it's a girl, Nathan noticed something that made his breath catch. On her left shoulder was a small crescent-shaped birthmark. It was an exact match to the one his late father had. Nathan's mind raced. He stared at the birthmark. Memories of his father flashing through his mind. It wasn't just a coincidence, there had to be a connection. A few days later, after they had returned home with the twins, Nathan couldn't shake the thought. Driven by curiosity and a need for answers, he ordered a discreet DNA test. The results, which arrived 2 weeks later, left him stunned. Emily was a distant relative connected to his family lineage through a shared ancestor. Nathan sat in his office staring at the results in disbelief. The revelation felt like a twist of fate, a connection he hadn't anticipated. It made everything feel more personal, more profound, but it also left him questioning his own intentions. Had fate brought Emily into his life for a reason, or had he simply been too blind to see the significance of their meeting earlier? When Emily found out about the DNA test, she was furious. She stormed into Nathan's office holding the results he had left on his desk. "What the hell is this, Nathan?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. Nathan looked up, his expression guilty. "Emily, I can explain. You investigated me after everything we've been through. You still don't trust me." "It wasn't about trust," Nathan said, standing to face her. "It was about understanding. I needed to know." "No," Emily interrupted, her voice rising. "You needed control, just like you always do. You couldn't handle not knowing, so you invaded my privacy. Do you even realize what that says about you?" Nathan's shoulders sagged, and for the first time he looked genuinely ashamed. "You're right," he admitted. "I acted out of fear of losing control, fear of losing you." Emily blinked, her anger wavering. "Losing me?" Nathan stepped closer, his voice earnest. "Yes, you've changed everything for me, Emily. I didn't expect to feel this way, and it scares me, but I know now that I can't let fear control me anymore." Emily stared at him, her emotions swirling. She wanted to stay angry, but his vulnerability disarmed her. "Nathan, trust is everything. If you can't trust me, then this, whatever this is, won't work." "I know," I said softly, "and I'm sorry. I'll prove to you."
"Nathan, you've already made so many changes. You're trying, and that's what matters." He shook his head. "It's not enough. I don't want to just try. I want us to be a family, a real one, not because of a contract, but because it's what I want." Emily's breath caught. She had dreamed of this moment. Hearing the words from him felt almost surreal. "Nathan, this is a big step. Are you sure you're ready for it?" "I've never been more certain," he said, his voice steady. "You and the twins have shown me what I was missing all along. I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want to move forward with you." Nathan's transformation didn't stop at home. He decided it was time to address the whispers and speculations surrounding his arrangement with Emily. At the company's next board meeting, he stood before his executives and senior staff and said, "I want to take a moment to acknowledge something." Nathan began, his tone firm but calm. "There have been rumors about my personal life. Today, I'm here to put them to rest." He paused, scanning the room. "Emily Ward is not just the mother of my children. She is someone I deeply respect and care for, and together we're raising a family." A murmur swept through the room, but Nathan didn't waver. "I've learned that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a strength, and I intend to lead this company with the same values I want to instill in my family: honesty, inclusivity, and care for one another." The room fell silent. Then, one by one, the executives began to nod, some even clapping softly. Emily, who had been watching from the back, felt tears prick her eyes. Nathan's willingness to stand by her and their children so publicly was a gesture she would never forget. As the months passed, Emily and Nathan worked together to create a home filled with love and laughter. Nathan's once called mansion transformed into a warm and inviting space, with baby toys scattered across the living room and the scent of Emily's cooking wafting from the kitchen. Nathan also made changes at the company, implementing family-friendly policies and supporting initiatives to help working parents. Emily, drawing from her own experiences, became an advisor in these efforts, ensuring the company fostered a more inclusive and compassionate environment. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the twins play on a blanket, Nathan reached for Emily's hand. "I never thought I'd have this," he admitted. "A family, a sense of purpose beyond work." Emily smiled, squeezing his hand. "You've come a long way, Nathan, and you've earned this." He looked at her, his expression soft. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've shown me what it means to care, to trust, to love." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "And you've shown me that people can change, that there's always hope." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, the sound of the twins' laughter filled the air. It was a simple moment, but for Nathan and Emily, it was everything. They had built something real, something worth holding on to. The twins' first birthday was a sunny affair filled with laughter, balloons, and the hum of cheerful conversation. The once cold mansion was unrecognizable, now brimming with warmth and life. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered in the sprawling garden, where tables were adorned with colorful decorations and a two-tiered cake stood proudly at the center. Children ran around, their laughter blending with the cheerful melodies of a live string quartet. Nathan stood at the edge of the crowd, watching as Emily helped the twins blow out the single candles on their small smash cakes. His heart swelled with pride and gratitude. These moments, so simple yet profound, were once unimaginable to him. Emily caught his gaze and smiled, motioning for him to join them. Nathan walked over, picking up their son as Emily held their daughter. Together, they faced their guests, the epitome of a family united. Later, after the party had wound down and the guests had left, Nathan and Emily sat on the porch swing, the twins fast asleep upstairs. The quiet of the evening was a stark contrast to the day's festivities, offering a moment for reflection. "Do you remember where we were a year ago?" Emily asked, her voice soft. Nathan chuckled, his expression thoughtful. "I was probably in my office, buried in contracts, trying to keep every emotion at bay. And you?" He looked at her with a mixture of admiration and remorse. "You were walking into this arrangement, probably thinking I was the coldest man alive." Emily laughed lightly, nudging him with her shoulder. "I wasn't wrong." "No, you weren't," he admitted, his tone serious. "But you stayed. You saw something in me I didn't even see in myself. You gave me a chance to be better." "And you gave me a chance to believe in people again," Emily replied. "You showed me that even when people make mistakes, they can change if they want to." Their journey together had inspired more than just personal growth. After months of planning, Nathan and Emily had launched a foundation aimed at supporting single parents and working families. The initiative provided resources, childcare support, and financial literacy programs, ensuring no one had to face the struggles Emily once endured alone. "It's funny," Emily said, breaking the silence. "The foundation, it feels like the twins have already left their mark on the world." Nathan nodded, his gaze distant but content. "They've brought out the best in us. In a way, they've been the greatest teachers I've ever had." Emily turned to him, her eyes shining. "And to think all of this started with a contract." Nathan smiled, his hand finding hers. "And ended with something so much more." As the evening wore on, they moved inside, stopping by the nursery to check on the twins. Nathan gently adjusted the blanket covering his son, while Emily leaned over the crib, brushing a strand of hair from their daughter's forehead. They stood there for a moment, side by side, watching the steady rise and fall of tiny chests. "They've changed everything," Nathan whispered. Emily nodded, her heart full. "And we've changed too, for the better." The next morning, Emily found a small note on her nightstand in Nathan's precise handwriting. It read, "Emily, thank you for giving me a life I never thought I deserved. You, the twins, and our journey together have shown me the meaning of love and purpose. I promise to keep learning, growing, and building this life with you. For all of us, yours, Nathan." Tears welled in her eyes as she read the words. It wasn't just a note, it was a promise, a testament to how far they had come. The twins' laughter echoed through the house as the family gathered in the garden later that day. Nathan held their son's hands, helping him toddle across the grass, while Emily spun their daughter around, both of them laughing under the bright blue sky. For Nathan and Emily, this wasn't just a new chapter, it was the start of a story they would write together, one filled with love, growth, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And so, Nathan and Emily's story teaches us that even the most unexpected beginnings can lead to a lifetime of love, growth, and meaningful change. Their journey from a cold transactional arrangement to building a family full of warmth and purpose is a testament to the power of transformation, trust, and second chances. What did you think about Nathan's incredible journey? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights mean the world to us. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And of course, don't miss out on more heartwarming tales like this one. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on all our emotional and inspirational stories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.